Hey guys! Tonight, we're slowly stepping back into a time when travel wasn't fast, easy, or exciting, but long, tiring, and endlessly slow. In this story, you'll drift along muddy medieval roads, listen to creaking carts and tired footsteps, and feel how days turned into weeks on a single journey. There's no rush here, just quiet roads, soft voices, and the kind of history that gently carries you towards sleep. If this slow, peaceful storytelling helps you relax, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to Sleeping Stone Whispers, and let these old roads guide you into rest. The morning arrived slowly, without any sense of urgency. In a small medieval town, long before sunrise bells or distant voices, the day began in near silence. A thin gray light rested over wooden roofs and narrow lanes, as if the world itself was still half asleep. There was no rush to leave, because travel in this age never truly hurried anyone. It simply waited, patient and unavoidable. Inside a modest home, a traveler stirred from a simple bed of straw and cloth. The air was cool, carrying the faint smell of damp wood and last night's fire. Dressing took time, layers of rough fabric, tied and retied carefully. Nothing about preparing for travel was quick. Each motion was slow, deliberate, and slightly tired even before the journey had begun. Outside, the road lay quietly beyond the town gate. It was not really a road as we might imagine one today. It was a wide, uneven path shaped by countless feet, hooves, and cart wheels, pressed into the earth over many years. In some places it was hard and dusty. In others, it was already soft with mud from recent rain. No one expected it to be comfortable. It simply existed, stretching forward into distance and uncertainty. Animals were prepared next. A horse shifted its weight patiently, breath visible in the cool air. It would not travel fast, and no one expected it to. Horses needed frequent rest, water, and reassurance. Carts creaked softly as they were adjusted, their wooden joints complaining with familiar sounds. These noises were not alarming, they were part of the rhythm of travel, like a slow heartbeat. Food was packed sparingly. Bread, hard and dry. Cheese wrapped in cloth. Perhaps a small flask of ale or water. There were no roadside inns guaranteed, no quick stops ahead. Each item carried had weight, and weight meant slower movement. Travelers learned early to bring only what was necessary, though necessary often still felt like too much after a few miles. As the sun finally lifted itself above the horizon, there was no dramatic farewell. Medieval journeys rarely began with excitement. Instead, they started with a quiet step forward, a gentle closing of a door, and the understanding that the road ahead would be long. Very long. Days would blur together. Feet would ache. Progress would be measured not in distance, but in endurance. And so, without ceremony, the journey began. Slowly, calmly, and already exhausting, before the first mile was even complete. Packing for a medieval journey was never about convenience. It was about necessity, and even necessity felt heavy. Long before departure, travelers stood quietly beside their belongings, considering what could be carried and what must be left behind. There were no trunks with wheels, no neatly organized bags. Everything had weight, and every added item meant slower steps on the road ahead. Most belongings were simple and worn from use. A spare tunic, folded carefully, already stiff from repeated washing and drying. A cloak, heavier than it looked, meant to guard against cold mornings and unexpected rain. Leather shoes, thick and solid, were tied tightly, though they would still rub and pinch after hours of walking. Nothing was new. Nothing was light. Food was wrapped in cloth or placed in small sacks. Bread was dense and hard, made to last rather than please. Cheese carried a strong smell and was packed tightly to keep it from spoiling too quickly. Dried meat, when available, added more weight than comfort. These items were not chosen for taste but for survival. Every bite had to earn its place. Tools and personal items came next. A small knife, essential for cutting food or rope. A wooden bowl or cup. Perhaps a simple charm or token, carried more for reassurance than usefulness. These objects were tucked away carefully, because losing even a small item on the road could cause real trouble later. Replacements were not easily found. Bags themselves were awkward. Made of leather or rough cloth, they pulled at the shoulders and pressed unevenly against the body. Straps dug into skin, especially after hours of movement. Carts, when available, were little better. They bounced and rattled, shifting weight constantly, making each step beside them slower and more tiring. There was no such thing as packing efficiently. Medieval travelers packed cautiously. They expected delays, discomfort, and the unexpected. Extra weight felt safer than being unprepared, even though it would make every mile more exhausting. This was a familiar trade-off, accepted without complaint. Once everything was secured, there was a quiet moment of stillness. A final check. A gentle tightening of straps. A slow breath taken before lifting the load. The body already understood what lay ahead. Muscles tensed, not in excitement, but in resignation. And with that weight settled firmly against back or cart, the traveler stepped forward. The journey continued, not just along the road, but beneath the burden of every carefully chosen belonging, carried mile after slow, deliberate mile. Choosing a road in medieval times was less about direction and more about acceptance. Maps, when they existed at all, were rare, vague, and often unreliable. Most travelers relied on memory, local advice, or the simple knowledge that a path had been used before. A road was rarely a clear line leading forward. It was a suggestion, shaped slowly by habit rather than design. Outside the town, several paths might stretch away in different directions. None were marked. None were smooth. Some were little more than faint tracks through grass or dirt, their edges softened by time and weather. Others disappeared entirely for long stretches, only to reappear where travelers had once gathered again. Choosing one did not bring confidence, only commitment. Silence often surrounded these paths. There were long stretches without houses, voices, or even animals. The only sounds came from footsteps, breathing, and the occasional creak of leather or wood. Progress felt uncertain, as though the journey itself might pause if attention drifted too far. Despite this uncertainty, travelers moved forward. Turning back was rarely an option. Once a road was chosen, it was followed patiently, even when it seemed to disappear beneath mud or grass. Doubt became part of the journey, carried as steadily as any physical burden. And so, on a road that barely existed, the traveler continued, guided by faint traces of those who had passed before, trusting that the path, however unclear, would eventually lead somewhere. The road, if it could still be called that, quickly revealed its true nature. It was not a single surface, but a quiet mixture of mud, stone, and uncertainty. Each step required attention. The ground changed constantly beneath tired feet, offering no consistency and very little comfort. In dry places, dust rose gently with every movement, settling back onto shoes and hems. Stones pressed upward through thin layers of earth, uneven and unforgiving. Some shifted suddenly, forcing careful adjustments to balance. In wetter stretches, the earth softened into thick mud that clung stubbornly to boots, adding weight with every step. Progress slowed without announcement, as if the path itself decided the pace. There were no clear boundaries. The path widened and narrowed at random, sometimes spreading into open ground, other times squeezing tightly between bushes or trees. Travelers guessed where to walk next, guided by instinct and faint marks left behind. A darker patch of soil might suggest recent footsteps. A shallow groove could mean a cart had once passed this way, though not recently. Stone sections brought different challenges. Old, broken paving appeared without warning, remnants of earlier efforts to improve the route. These stones were worn smooth by time and weather, slippery underfoot and unevenly placed. They demanded slow, careful movement, especially when carrying weight or guiding an animal alongside. Guesswork became part of walking. Travelers judged distance by feel rather than sight. A bend in the path might hide a sudden drop or a muddy stretch beyond. Hills appeared gradually, tiring legs long before the summit was reached. Downward slopes were no relief, forcing cautious steps to avoid slipping. Despite the effort, there was little sense of accomplishment. Walking did not feel productive. It felt repetitive and endless. The same motions repeated again and again, hour after hour, without noticeable progress. Time stretched quietly, measured only by fatigue. And so the journey continued across these uncertain paths. Through mud that pulled, stones that resisted, and guesses that guided every step forward, slowly wearing down both body and patience, one careful footfall at a time. Horses were often imagined as a solution to the slowness of medieval travel, but in practice, they brought their own quiet limitations. They were not built for constant motion or long, uninterrupted days on rough roads. More than speed, they required care, patience, and frequent rest. A horse moved steadily rather than quickly. Its pace was measured, shaped by uneven ground and the weight it carried. Saddles were heavy, and packs were tied carefully to avoid imbalance. Even a lightly loaded horse could tire faster than expected, especially on paths filled with mud or stone. When the ground softened, hooves sank and pulled free again with effort, slowing everything down. Rest stops were necessary and frequent. Horses needed water often and could not be pushed without consequence. A tired animal became stubborn, slowing further or stopping entirely. Travelers learned to listen for small signs, heavier breathing, shorter steps, lowered heads. These signals meant it was time to pause, whether the traveler wished to or not. Feeding added more delays. Grass along the road was not always suitable, and grain had to be carried or found in villages. A horse could not travel well on an empty stomach, and finding proper feed sometimes took longer than the walking itself. While the animal ate, the traveler waited, standing or sitting nearby, watching time pass without movement. Weather affected horses deeply. Cold mornings stiffened muscles. Rain softened hooves and made footing dangerous. Heat brought fatigue and discomfort. Unlike humans, horses could not adjust clothing or pace easily. Their needs dictated the rhythm of the journey, often slowing progress to a crawl. Caring for a horse at the end of the day took more time than caring for oneself. Hooves were checked, straps loosened, backs brushed when possible. A sore or injured horse meant delay, detours, or even the end of travel altogether. There were no quick fixes. In many cases, walking beside a horse felt no faster than walking alone. The animal's presence added responsibility rather than relief. Yet travelers accepted this, knowing that without the horse, carrying supplies would be even harder. And so the road continued at the pace horses allowed, not fast, not efficient, but steady and cautious, marked by frequent stops, quiet waiting, and the understanding that endurance mattered far more than speed. Carts were meant to make travel easier, but they often felt like another slow burden added to the journey. Built from thick wood and held together with iron fittings, they were sturdy but far from smooth. When placed on uneven medieval roads, carts protested constantly, their joints creaking and groaning with every small movement. The wheels were large and heavy, designed more for durability than comfort. They turned slowly, catching on stones, sinking into soft earth, and refusing to roll easily through mud. Each rotation required effort from animals already tired, and from travelers who sometimes had to push from behind. Forward motion came in short, reluctant bursts. Carts demanded attention at all times. A wheel could loosen. A plank could crack. Axles needed checking whenever the road grew rougher, which was often. Stopping to inspect and adjust became routine, adding more pauses to an already slow day. These stops were quiet and methodical, marked by careful hands and patient waiting. The sound of a cart was unmistakable. Long before it appeared, it announced itself with a low, rhythmic creak that echoed softly through open land. The noise never stopped completely. It became part of the background, a dull companion that followed mile after mile. Over time, travelers stopped noticing it consciously, though it never truly faded away. Carts struggled most where roads narrowed or disappeared. Tight paths between trees or over shallow streams forced careful maneuvering. Sometimes the cart had to be unloaded, dragged across, and loaded again on the other side. Each item was lifted slowly, placed down, then lifted once more. Progress paused entirely during these moments. Weather made carts even less cooperative. Rain soaked wooden wheels, swelling them slightly and making turning harder. Dry conditions caused wood to shrink and fittings to loosen. There was no ideal state, only constant adjustment. The cart never felt reliable, only manageable. Despite all this, carts remained necessary. They carried food, tools, and supplies that could not be borne on human backs alone. Travelers accepted their flaws without complaint. Complaining did not make wheels turn faster. As the day wore on, the cart continued forward, inch by inch, its creaking marking time more clearly than any clock. It did not rush. It did not improve. It simply moved, slowly and stubbornly, reminding everyone along the road that medieval travel was never meant to be swift, only persistent. The first day of travel always felt longer than expected. It began quietly and ended the same way, yet everything in between stretched out with surprising weight. Time did not move in clear hours. It drifted, measured instead by tired legs, repeated steps, and the gradual dulling of energy. Morning progress felt hopeful at first. Muscles were still warm, and the road, though uneven, seemed manageable. Steps fell into a gentle rhythm. Breathing stayed steady. There was a sense, brief and fragile, that perhaps the journey would not be as exhausting as imagined. This feeling did not last long. As the sun climbed higher, the pace slowed without notice. Small pauses became necessary. A moment to adjust a strap. A moment to sip water. A moment to simply stand still and rest. Each pause felt short, but together they quietly consumed the day. Distance covered grew smaller than expected, though effort increased steadily. The road offered little variation. Fields passed slowly, one blending into the next. Trees appeared, then disappeared again. Villages, when encountered, were passed carefully and without hurry. There was no reason to linger, yet no reason to rush onward either. The journey existed in a narrow space between movement and waiting. Midday brought fatigue. Shoulders ached under carried weight. Feet felt heavier with each step. The body began to notice every uneven stone and soft patch of mud. Conversation, if there was any, faded into silence. Words felt unnecessary and slightly tiring. Listening to the sounds of walking became enough. By afternoon, the sense of progress weakened. The destination felt no closer than it had in the morning. The road continued ahead in the same quiet way, offering no sign of change. The traveler learned not to think too far ahead. Thinking only made the distance feel longer. As evening approached, light softened and shadows stretched across the path. Finding a place to rest became the final task of the day. A clearing, a barn, a quiet edge of a field, anything that promised stillness. Setting down burdens felt slow and careful, as though the body resisted even this final effort. The first day ended without ceremony. There was no triumph, only relief. The traveler rested, knowing tomorrow would feel much the same. And as sleep arrived, it carried with it the understanding that the journey had only just begun, and it would continue at this same unhurried pace, day after slow day. Villages appeared gradually along the road, never suddenly. A few scattered houses came first, low and wooden, their roofs darkened by age and weather. Smoke drifted lazily from small chimneys, rising straight into the air when the wind was calm. These signs suggested life, yet everything felt quiet and unhurried, as though the village itself was resting. Each village resembled the last. Narrow paths instead of streets. Fences leaning slightly, repaired many times over the years. Animals moved slowly, unbothered by passing travelers. Chickens wandered freely. Dogs watched without barking. Nothing about these places invited haste or excitement. They existed at their own pace, unchanged by the road that passed through them. Travelers moved carefully through villages, mindful but calm. There were no wide squares or clear directions. The path wound between homes, sometimes narrowing so much that carts scraped gently against posts or walls. People glanced up briefly from their work, offering little more than a nod. Encounters were quiet and short, not unfriendly, just restrained by routine. Stopping was possible, but not always helpful. Supplies were limited. Water had to be drawn slowly from wells. Food, when available, came with waiting and simple exchange. These pauses stretched time even further, turning minutes into long, silent intervals. Leaving often took just as long as arriving. The sameness of villages blurred together. After passing through several, it became difficult to remember their differences. One had a small stone church. Another had a stream running nearby. These details faded quickly as the road reclaimed attention. Memory flattened them into a single impression, familiar, quiet, and slow. Sounds within villages were soft. Wooden tools tapped gently. Voices carried only a short distance. Bells, if they rang, did so without urgency. Nothing signaled importance. Nothing suggested speed. Even the animals moved as though conserving energy. As villages fell behind, the traveler returned to open road without feeling much change. The transition was smooth, almost unnoticed. Fields and paths replaced homes, yet the rhythm remained the same. Walking continued. Breathing continued. Fatigue remained. By the end of the day, several villages might have been crossed, yet none stood out clearly in memory. They merged into the journey itself, quiet pauses along an already slow path. And as the road stretched onward once more, it carried the traveler away from another place that felt almost exactly like the one before, leaving behind only the faint sense of having passed through somewhere familiar and gently forgotten. Rivers interrupted the journey without warning, stretching across the road in slow, steady silence. They could not be hurried, reasoned with, or ignored. When a river appeared, travel paused, sometimes for hours, sometimes longer. The water decided when movement could continue. Some rivers were narrow, flowing gently over smooth stones. Others were wide and slow, their surfaces broken only by drifting leaves or ripples from the wind. After rain, even the calmest river could swell, spreading outward and becoming dangerous to cross. Travelers learned quickly to stop and observe before stepping forward. There were no bridges in many places, and where bridges existed, they were rare and often fragile. Wooden planks bowed under weight. Missing boards forced careful steps. Sometimes the bridge was simply gone, carried away by water long ago. In these moments, waiting became the only option. Standing beside a river was a quiet experience. The sound of water moving replaced the sound of footsteps. Time slowed further. Travelers watched the current, judging its strength, though judgment changed little. If the water ran too fast or too deep, nothing could be done except wait. Patience was not a choice, it was required. Ferries offered another solution, but they arrived slowly and operated cautiously. A single crossing took time, with long pauses between trips. Animals had to be led carefully. Carts were loaded and unloaded piece by piece. Each movement was deliberate, adding to the delay. Sometimes travelers waited for others to arrive, joining together to make crossing safer. These gatherings were quiet and temporary. Little was said. Everyone understood the situation. The river set the pace, and no one argued with it. Weather added uncertainty. A clear sky might promise a calmer crossing later. Rain suggested more waiting ahead. Travelers learned to read the water's surface, hoping for small changes, a lower line on the bank, a slower pull at the edges. Eventually, the moment came. Shoes were tightened. Packs adjusted. Breath held briefly. Crossing, when it happened, was slow and careful, each step tested before committing weight. On the far side, relief was subtle, expressed more in stillness than celebration. And then the journey resumed, leaving the river behind, carrying with it the memory of waiting, of standing still while the water moved endlessly forward, reminding every traveler that in medieval journeys, progress often depended on patience more than effort. When a ferry was available, it rarely brought speed or certainty. Medieval ferries were simple platforms of wood, tied together and guided across rivers by ropes, poles, or quiet effort. They did not glide smoothly from one bank to the other. Instead, they drifted slowly, responding more to the water than to human control. Waiting for a ferry took time. There was no schedule. Travelers stood along the riverbank, watching the surface for signs of movement. Sometimes the ferry was already in use, carrying others across one careful load at a time. Sometimes it was nowhere to be seen, resting on the opposite shore until someone noticed the need for it. Loading the ferry was a slow process. People stepped on first, testing the balance. Animals followed reluctantly, hooves placed with hesitation on unfamiliar planks. Carts were disassembled when necessary, their contents carried aboard in quiet repetition. Each adjustment caused the ferry to sway gently, demanding patience and steady hands. Once afloat, progress felt uncertain. The ferry moved in small increments, guided against the current rather than with it. Poles dipped into the water slowly. Ropes tightened and loosened. The river pushed back without urgency, stretching the crossing into a long, quiet interval. Sounds were muted on the water. The creak of wood, the soft splash of poles, the low movement of the current. Conversation faded quickly, replaced by careful watching. Everyone waited for the moment when the far bank drew closer, though it seemed to take far longer than expected. Midway across, the ferry often paused, not by intention, but by circumstance. Currents shifted. Effort increased. Nothing about the crossing felt smooth or assured. Yet panic was rare. Delays were expected. Anxiety had little place here, there was nowhere else to go. Reaching the opposite shore brought no excitement. The ferry nudged gently into the bank, and unloading began as slowly as loading had. Feet returned to land. Animals were guided off. Carts were reassembled, one piece at a time. Only after everything was back in place did travel resume. The ferry drifted away again, carrying others or resting until called. The journey continued at the same unhurried pace, the river now behind, its slow crossing blending into the long chain of delays that defined medieval travel. As the sun dipped below the horizon, travelers finally sought places to rest, though comfort was rarely part of the equation. Medieval inns were small, drafty, and dimly lit by flickering candles or embers. Floors were uneven, and doors creaked on worn hinges. Travelers placed their packs down carefully, already aware that rest would be brief and modest. Beds were often little more than wooden frames with straw, covered by rough cloth. Sleep came slowly, measured in half-awake moments punctuated by the creak of floorboards or the soft sound of wind whistling through cracks. Animals, when brought indoors, shuffled and stirred, adding gentle noise that became part of the evening rhythm. Barns offered an alternative for those seeking cheaper shelter. Straw beds were spread across hard floors, smells of hay and animals mixing in a quiet, familiar way. Travelers lay side by side with others, sharing the minimal warmth of bodies pressed together, listening to the subtle movements of horses and cattle. The night was long and slow, marked by occasional shifting or coughing, yet it lulled the mind into quiet observation. Meals in these resting places were simple and muted. Bread, cheese, and watered ale offered sustenance more than pleasure. Eating was a methodical task, taken slowly to conserve energy for the next day. Conversations, if any, were whispered and brief, respectful of fatigue and space. The night stretched endlessly, a mirror of the day's slow passage. Travelers did not dream of adventure or speed. Instead, they became acutely aware of each small sound, each gentle creak, each weight of their belongings resting at last. And as sleep finally approached, it was tentative and calm, a quiet surrender to the unhurried rhythm of the medieval road. Evenings on the road were quiet and deliberate. Food was simple, often cold from sitting too long on a wooden table or packed in small cloths. Bread was dense, slightly dry, and had been carried for days. Cheese, firm and slightly salty, offered sustenance more than flavor. Occasionally, dried meat appeared, tough and chewed slowly to extract every bit of nourishment. Ale, when available, was lukewarm, poured from a simple wooden jug into a rough cup. It offered comfort rather than refreshment, and its taste reminded travelers of the effort required to reach even the simplest of inns. Water, drawn from wells or rivers, carried a faint earthy smell, but it was a necessary part of the evening routine. Meals were quiet affairs. Travelers sat close to one another but rarely spoke at length. Words were soft, measured, and slow, matching the pace of the day. Eating itself became a kind of meditation. A slow, deliberate acknowledgement of survival, rather than pleasure or indulgence. Candlelight flickered gently, casting long shadows across uneven floors. Each movement of hand or utensil caused the light to dance and sway. The slow glow emphasized the stillness of the room and the rhythm of the evening. Sounds of creaking wood, distant animals, or soft whispers blended into a quiet symphony of routine. By the time the meal ended, fatigue pressed in steadily. Travelers cleaned what they could, tucked belongings carefully, and prepared for sleep. The cold food, lukewarm ale, and soft light were not discomforting, they were a part of the journey's rhythm. The day concluded in small, measured motions, and the quiet evening became the gentle bridge to the next slow day on the road. After leaving a village or river crossing behind, the traveler often found themselves alone on the open road. Silence stretched ahead and around them, thick and unbroken. There were no bells, no voices, no machinery, only the soft sound of boots on uneven ground and the occasional creak of a distant cart. The landscape offered little distraction. Fields rolled slowly into the horizon. Trees swayed faintly in the wind, casting shifting shadows over dirt and stone. Hills rose gently, then faded again. Every feature seemed familiar yet indistinct, blending into a quiet monotony that stretched the mind as well as the body. Walking in such silence required no effort to speak. Even conversation felt unnecessary. Travelers became attuned to subtle details, the crunch of gravel underfoot, the flap of a distant bird's wings, the steady breathing of an animal beside them. Each sound, small and deliberate, filled the emptiness without disturbing it. Hours passed in this quiet rhythm. The body moved automatically, almost without thought. Fatigue became steady rather than sharp, a dull pressure that reminded the traveler of the slow passage of time. There was no hurry, no goal visible in the distance, only the next careful step, the next inch of earth covered. Even the mind grew calm in such long silence. Thoughts drifted slowly, unhurried, like clouds passing over a pale sky. The open road taught patience naturally, forcing travelers to accept the rhythm of movement without expectation. And so the journey continued, step by step, hour by hour, wrapped in the long, gentle silence of the medieval path. Travel in medieval times was not measured in miles or hours, but in the quiet endurance of the body. Feet, pressed into stiff leather shoes, became the first to feel the strain. Blisters formed slowly, rubbing against the uneven leather and rough roads, reminding travelers of each step they had taken and each step still to come. Soreness spread upward, from ankles to calves, then into knees and hips. Every joint complained in its own subtle way, a dull reminder of the road's insistence. Travelers learned to adjust slowly, shifting weight, pausing more frequently, bending or stretching gently, just enough to continue, but not enough to hasten recovery. Pain was steady, unhurried, and inevitable. It was not sharp or dramatic, but persistent, like a soft hum that demanded attention without shouting. Travelers acknowledged it quietly, a companion on the long journey rather than an enemy to be fought. Resting briefly eased it, but only temporarily. Soon, movement was required again, and the rhythm of discomfort returned. Walking became a negotiation between body and road. Each step required thought and care, even when fatigue dulled awareness. Travelers watched the ground, judging firmness, avoiding sharp stones, and testing muddy patches before committing weight. Blisters and soreness dictated pace more than desire or urgency ever could. Despite this, the mind often grew calm alongside the body. Pain, when gentle and constant, had a meditative quality. The repetition of steps, the slow march of miles, and the quiet endurance of the body became a rhythm in itself. And so, blisters and aches accompanied travelers silently, shaping every mile, every hour, and every quiet moment on the road. Rain was never merely a nuisance, it transformed the road entirely. A light drizzle quickly darkened dirt paths, softening the earth and leaving footprints that sank deeper with each step. Mud clung to shoes and boots, weighing down the traveler and slowing every motion. Carts and animals struggled in a similar rhythm, each movement measured and cautious. Puddles formed unpredictably, sometimes shallow, sometimes deep enough to hide uneven stones beneath. Every crossing required care, each step chosen slowly to avoid twisting an ankle or losing balance. Travelers learned to pause, to test the ground with a toe, and to step gingerly, all while keeping pace as steady as the conditions allowed. Rivers and streams swelled silently, their edges creeping outward to claim paths that had been dry only hours before. Ferries were delayed, shallow crossings impossible. Villages seemed farther than before, fields more expansive and treacherous. Rain extended the day without altering its monotony, it simply added more weight, more resistance, and more patience to each mile. Sounds changed under the rainfall. The soft splash of boots in puddles, the murmur of water flowing in ruts, and the rhythmic tapping of animals' hooves created a quiet soundtrack to the journey. Conversation dwindled to nearly nothing, voices drowned softly in the endless patter of droplets. Travelers moved in near silence, each aware of the effort required to continue. By evening, the road was transformed into a patchwork of mud, pools, and slippery stone. Each step was deliberate. Each pause necessary. Progress seemed smaller, though effort increased. Rain reminded every traveler that the journey was slow, unhurried, and often dictated by conditions beyond control. And so, soaked and careful, they continued. Each step measured, each puddle crossed, and each mile endured in quiet persistence. As travelers continued along the slow, uneven road, they began to mark progress not by hours, but by the careful counting of miles, or at least by rough estimates. There were no mile markers, no maps with precise distances. Instead, progress was measured in stones passed, trees crossed, or small landmarks noticed along the way. Each mile was earned through effort and patience. Feet ached steadily, but the mind sought distraction in numbers. How far have we gone? How far until the next village? Each thought became a quiet rhythm, a way to frame the long, seemingly endless stretches of road. Travelers counted silently, almost meditatively, their focus on small, tangible details rather than the distant destination. Animals, too, contributed to the pacing. Horses slowed or sped slightly, carts creaked in response, and every motion demanded recalibration of effort. Travelers watched their companions and adjusted rhythm carefully. One misstep or sudden change could throw off the delicate balance, making the next mile feel even longer. Passing milestones was rarely celebrated. A lone tree or a bend in the river might be acknowledged quietly, a subtle nod to small victories rather than excitement. Recognition was gentle and private, a quiet reward for endurance rather than a loud cheer. The journey was unhurried, and even progress was experienced softly, like a slow turning of the day into night. By evening, counting became less precise. Fatigue blurred the mind and the landscape alike. Miles lost meaning, replaced by the steady repetition of steps and the calm knowledge that movement, however slow, continued. And so the journey carried on, mile by mile, with patient awareness shaping every moment of the long, quiet road. Sometimes, travel paused not by choice, but by necessity. Roads became impassable, rivers too high, or animals too tired to continue. These interruptions became rest days, yet they were never truly restful. Time stretched slowly, filled with quiet preparation, minor repairs, and waiting. Travelers did not simply sleep. Horses and carts required attention, feeding, watering, and inspecting hooves and wheels. Leather straps were adjusted, packs rearranged, and shoes or boots checked for damage. Each task was slow, methodical, and necessary, leaving little time to relax fully. The mind also remained alert. Roads ahead were uncertain. Weather could worsen. Villages could be farther than expected. Even in stillness, the journey demanded thought and planning, though nothing could speed time or progress. Travelers moved from task to task with quiet diligence, carrying fatigue and patience together. Food during rest days followed the same deliberate rhythm. Bread was sliced carefully, cheese cut slowly, and water or ale poured measuredly. Nothing was hurried, each action was repeated, small and careful, filling the hours without excitement. By evening, the body felt as tired as if it had walked, though the feet had not moved many miles. Rest was only relative. The day ended in gentle waiting, a quiet acceptance that even pauses on the medieval road were filled with effort and patience, and that the journey, in its own slow way, continued even in stillness. Travel in medieval times was rarely a solitary affair, but meeting others along the way was a slow, uncertain process. Roads were long, paths uncertain, and settlements scattered. Travelers often paused, not from exhaustion or weather, but simply to wait for companions who might arrive hours, or even days, later. Waiting required patience. Eyes scanned the horizon for the faint movement of carts, horses, or figures. The mind occupied itself with small observations. The tilt of a fence, the curve of a distant hill, the way light fell across the road. Time seemed to stretch, measured not by distance traveled but by the slow approach of others. Animals rested alongside travelers, occasionally nudging or shifting, reminding those waiting that the road was still demanding attention. Horses needed feeding and water. Carts needed inspection. Even while standing still, the journey required subtle effort, each pause accompanied by quiet work to maintain equipment and stamina. When fellow travelers finally appeared, progress resumed, but the pace remained deliberate. Groups adjusted slowly, matching the rhythm of each horse, cart, and person. Conversation was soft and measured, more about passing time than news or excitement. Each step taken together reinforced the shared understanding that medieval travel was unhurried, and patience was as necessary as any pack or tool. Hours passed quietly as the group merged and moved forward. The road continued to stretch endlessly ahead, each mile measured not only by movement, but by waiting, observing, and the steady, unchanging rhythm of the journey. In this way, companionship itself became another part of the slow, deliberate journey. Once travelers joined companions, the road became slightly more lively, though never hurried. Conversations unfolded at a gentle pace, matching the slow rhythm of feet on uneven paths. Words were measured, soft and deliberate, carefully timed between steps and breaths. There was no urgency, only a quiet exchange to accompany the long journey. Topics were simple and practical. Discussions about the condition of roads, the state of rivers, or the endurance of horses filled the air. Travelers shared observations about villages past, whether to expect, or supplies remaining. Rarely did words carry excitement, they existed to pass the time, to anchor attention, and to remind minds of something other than the monotony of the road. Even laughter, when it came, was soft and fleeting, fading quickly into the sound of boots on dirt and carts creaking. Companions adjusted pace to match each other, walking close enough to speak, but not so close as to disrupt the rhythm of movement. Silence returned naturally between words, sometimes lasting long stretches, comfortable in its stillness. Animals moved alongside or ahead, their steady breathing adding to the quiet cadence. The road dictated the pace more than any conversation could. Travelers spoke, paused, observed, and walked, repeating this cycle with gentle predictability. By evening, these slow conversations had become part of the journey's rhythm. Words faded as darkness approached, leaving companions aware of each other's presence without the need for speech. The road, in its persistent quiet, continued to shape every moment, movement, speech, and silence alike, reminding travelers that in medieval travel, even company moved at the pace of endurance. As the road led into forests, the journey slowed even further. Trees crowded the path, their branches intertwining above to create a muted canopy that filtered sunlight into soft, shifting patterns. The ground beneath was uneven, roots and stones emerging unpredictably, making every step cautious and deliberate. Travelers moved slowly, careful not to trip or stumble. Horses hesitated over gnarled roots, and carts creaked in protest as wheels struggled through soft patches of earth. The forest seemed endless, stretching far beyond what could be seen, each bend revealing another similar expanse. Hours passed, measured in careful steps rather than distance covered. Sounds were quiet and muffled. Leaves rustled softly in the wind. Birds called faintly, yet often went unnoticed. Conversation dwindled naturally as attention focused on the path itself. Travelers became acutely aware of the slow, steady rhythm of movement. The gentle crunch of earth, the scrape of wood on stone, the occasional low snort of an animal. Light shifted gradually through the day. Sunbeams dappled the forest floor, casting moving shadows that stretched and shifted. Travelers measured time by the change in light rather than the sun's position. Progress was subtle and imperceptible, a faint sense of moving forward rather than any clear indication of nearing the forest's edge. By evening, the forest finally thinned. Exiting took longer than imagined, and feet were sore from uneven terrain. Still, travelers continued, carrying the quiet patience learned in shaded hours into the open fields beyond. The forest, though left behind, remained a gentle reminder of how slow and deliberate medieval travel truly was. As travelers approached towns along the medieval road, they often encountered gates that marked both an end and a pause in the day's journey. These gates were not merely entry points, they were controlled, guarded, and governed by schedules that did not bend for anyone. Arrival at a gate after the guards had closed meant waiting until the next morning. Gates themselves were heavy wooden structures, reinforced with iron. The hinges creaked slowly when opened, and the portcullis descended with deliberate weight. Travelers stood before them quietly, waiting their turn, aware that speed or insistence could not change the rhythm of the town. Even the presence of horses and carts required measured patience as the guards ensured safe passage. Inside the walls, life moved at its own unhurried pace. Markets might still be active, but they closed early. Inns and taverns offered modest accommodations, often crowded with other late arrivals. Travelers adjusted to this gentle delay, setting down packs carefully, tending to animals, and preparing for rest, all under the quiet watch of town gates that dictated the day's schedule. Conversation and movement slowed near the gates. Travelers waited with soft murmurs or silent observation, noting the repeated gestures of guards, the passage of carts, and the cautious approach of others who arrived simultaneously. Every moment reinforced the lesson that medieval travel was shaped by rules and schedules outside one's control. As dusk fell, gates closed firmly, leaving travelers to settle just outside or inside the town. The day concluded not with arrival or celebration, but with quiet acceptance that the journey was continuous and measured more by endurance and patience than by distance or speed. Even within towns, the road dictated the pace. Not every mile of medieval travel followed a straightforward path. Roads were rarely safe, and travelers often had to take long detours to avoid danger, whether from wild animals, unstable terrain, or the occasional bandit. These detours were slow and measured, adding hours, or even days, to the journey, but caution was always necessary. Guidance came from local knowledge, hastily exchanged words at inns, or the advice of fellow travelers. Even then, detours were uncertain. Paths might lead through rougher terrain, muddy valleys, or dense woods. Travelers moved carefully, adjusting pace for every obstacle. What should have been a short stretch could extend indefinitely, each mile testing patience and endurance. Animals and carts suffered as well. Horses had to navigate uneven ground, their hooves slipping in soft mud. Carts creaked, wheels shifted, and loads jostled with every careful turn. Travelers walked alongside them, sometimes guiding or pushing, their steps slow and deliberate to avoid accidents. The landscape offered little reassurance. Hills rose gradually, then fell, only to reveal more distance to cover. Streams appeared without warning, forcing pauses or slow crossings. Each detour blended into the journey as if the road itself insisted on caution, teaching travelers that forward movement was earned, not given. By the end of such a day, the sense of distance covered often felt smaller than expected. Yet travelers accepted this as part of the rhythm of medieval travel. Progress was never quick, paths were rarely direct, and patience was far more valuable than speed. And so, with quiet endurance, they continued along the winding, cautious road. Feet bore the constant burden of the medieval journey, and shoes rarely lasted long without attention. Leather cracked, soles wore thin, and straps loosened from hours of uneven walking. Travelers became familiar with the slow, careful art of repair, performing small fixes on the road before damage became unbearable. Patches of leather were applied where the sole thinned. Straps were retied, sometimes doubled, to prevent slipping. Needles, awls, and thread were used with steady, measured hands, every stitch deliberate and slow. Even a minor repair could take an hour or more, stretching the day without adding a mile of distance. Carts and packs received similar attention. Loose boards were lashed down, frayed ropes replaced, and wheels inspected for cracks or imbalance. Each repair demanded caution, because a failure mid-journey could force a longer delay or even the abandonment of supplies. Travelers learned to anticipate wear, correcting small issues before they became urgent. Animals, too, required care. Hooves were cleaned of mud and stones, harnesses adjusted, and tired limbs checked. Even while standing still, travelers remained in motion, attending to the quiet, persistent demands of the road. By evening, worn shoes and repaired packs served as a reminder of the journey's slow, relentless pace. Each mile walked, each repair made, and each careful adjustment reinforced the quiet truth: medieval travel was as much about maintaining what one had as it was about moving forward, and patience shaped every moment along the way. Some mornings, the road seemed to vanish entirely beneath a thick blanket of fog. Travelers could see only a few feet ahead, the familiar shape of carts and companions barely emerging from the gray. Movement slowed instinctively, each step measured carefully against unseen obstacles. The fog made ordinary paths uncertain. Stones and ruts were hidden. Muddy patches could not be judged until felt beneath boots. Travelers leaned on memory and intuition, following faint impressions left by carts or hooves the day before. Even animals hesitated, sniffing and testing the ground, their cautious movements dictating the rhythm of the group. Sounds became muted and distorted. Voices carried only a short distance, muffled by the dense air. The creak of a cart seemed closer, then suddenly far away. Travelers learned to move with extreme patience, relying on subtle cues rather than sight, knowing that rushing could lead to a stumble or worse. The fog stretched time and distance alike. Miles that should have passed quickly felt endless. Travelers measured the journey by small, deliberate markers: a bend in the road, a distant tree, or the soft crunch of familiar soil beneath their feet. Progress existed in tiny increments, each step a cautious advance into uncertainty. By afternoon, the fog often lifted gradually, revealing the slow stretch of road ahead. Travelers emerged with feet damp, shoes heavier with mud, and minds sharpened by careful attention. And yet, the experience became another quiet lesson: medieval roads offered no shortcuts, and the journey demanded patience, endurance, and measured steps, whether the path was visible or shrouded in mist. On many medieval roads, travelers encountered slow-moving herds of animals. Cows, sheep, or goats often wandered across paths, guided by farmers or simply moving naturally from pasture to pasture. These crossings were neither hurried nor predictable, and travelers learned to adjust their pace accordingly. Horses halted, carts stopped, and travelers waited. Animals moved in their own rhythm, unaware of the urgency, or lack thereof, felt by humans. Small children accompanying farmers occasionally wandered ahead or behind, calling softly to guide the herd. Each step required careful attention to avoid startling the animals or causing accidents. Paths narrowed as herds passed, forcing travelers to slow even further. Muddy ground, uneven terrain, and the shifting weight of carts added to the deliberate caution. Every inch was negotiated slowly, with careful observation and soft guidance for both animals and companions. Conversations paused. Travelers spoke in whispers or not at all, letting the quiet of movement and the gentle shuffle of hooves dominate the moment. Time stretched as the herd moved, seemingly unhurried, teaching patience through the steady passage of another living rhythm. Once the animals finally moved beyond sight, travelers resumed their own pace. Yet the delay lingered in mind and body. The road continued, as it always did, measured not by distance alone but by every interruption, obstacle, and slow, deliberate step along the way. Each herd crossing became another quiet testament to the unhurried, persistent nature of medieval travel. In medieval travel, animals were companions, but they were also responsibilities that often came before human needs. Horses, donkeys, and even oxen had to be fed and watered regularly, sometimes before travelers themselves could sit down to a meal. Their health dictated the rhythm of the journey more than any human schedule. Stopping to feed animals was a slow, methodical process. Grass was gathered carefully where it was available. Water had to be drawn from rivers, streams, or wells. Hooves and harnesses were checked while the animal ate, ensuring nothing was too tight or worn. Travelers moved gently, rarely rushing, because a startled horse or overloaded cart could delay the journey further. Food for humans often waited until animals were satisfied. Bread and cheese were set aside, tea or ale poured slowly, and meals consumed with quiet patience. Travelers grew accustomed to this order, accepting that progress depended first on the well-being of those carrying or pulling them. Even feeding was not always straightforward. Muddy banks, shallow streams, or thin grass required careful positioning. Animals moved slowly, sniffing and testing their surroundings, forcing travelers to adapt step by step. The day's pace was measured in moments of pause as much as in miles walked. By the time humans finally ate, the road had already claimed hours. Yet this routine became familiar, almost meditative: care for the animals first, attention to detail second, and movement afterward. In this way, medieval travel was defined not only by distance, but by quiet endurance, patience, and respect for the slow rhythm of life around the traveler. Days on the medieval road followed a quiet, unchanging pattern: wake, walk, and wait. Each morning began slowly, with the soft rustle of bedding, the low whinny of horses, or the gentle shifting of carts. Travelers rose with deliberate care, stretching stiff muscles and adjusting straps or packs before even taking a step. Walking consumed the bulk of the day. Steps were measured, uneven paths negotiated carefully, and every mile earned through patience and attention. The rhythm of boots on dirt, the creak of carts, and the occasional neigh of animals became a gentle background soundtrack, steady and unhurried. Conversation was minimal, punctuated only by practical notes about the road, animals, or weather. Waiting was as much a part of the journey as movement. Travelers paused at rivers, ferries, villages, or gates. Hours stretched slowly while decisions were made, repairs performed, or animals fed. Waiting required patience, endurance, and quiet acceptance. It was neither idle nor hurried, it simply was, a constant companion along the road. The repetition of these three actions created a steady rhythm, familiar and unchanging. Wake, walk, wait. Wake, walk, wait. Travelers measured days less by distance covered and more by the steady unfolding of this cycle. Fatigue became predictable, progress slow, and patience essential. By evening, the mind had settled into the rhythm of repetition. The body knew what to expect, and even the smallest details, adjusting a strap, testing a stone underfoot, listening to the soft murmur of water, became part of the gentle cadence. In this way, medieval travel existed as a slow, measured passage of time, marked not by excitement or speed, but by the quiet, persistent repetition of wake, walk, and wait. On long medieval journeys, travelers quickly realized that progress could not be measured by hours or even days. Roads were slow, distances deceptive, and obstacles frequent. Instead, the passage of time often settled into weeks, each marked by the quiet accumulation of effort rather than sudden change. Travelers observed patterns over days, the shifting position of the sun, the slow growth of crops along fields, or the weather's subtle changes. Villages passed, rivers crossed, and forests entered and exited, but the landscape rarely felt transformed. Weeks became the natural unit of measurement, with small milestones noted quietly, almost meditatively, rather than celebrated. Animals dictated the pace as much as humans did. Horses needed feeding, carts required repair, and even favorable weather could not speed progress significantly. Travelers learned to accept that movement itself was incremental, that days of careful walking often yielded only a few miles of distance. Even the mind adjusted to the slow flow of time. Rather than focusing on immediate destinations, attention shifted to routines, checking packs, tending animals, preparing for river crossings, and observing landmarks along the way. Each week became a chapter in the quiet narrative of the journey, marked more by endurance than by visible achievement. By the end of the second or third week, travelers measured progress not in miles but in experience, the rhythm of the road, the subtle changes in terrain, and the persistent lessons of patience. Medieval travel taught that time itself was a companion, slow and steady, and that counting weeks, rather than days, was the only way to understand the true pace of the journey. Even after weeks of slow travel, progress was often imperceptible. Yet, there was always a quiet hope that the destination might be near, a village, a town, or even a familiar landmark in the distance. This hope was subtle, almost fragile, never loud or urgent, but it provided gentle encouragement for tired feet and weary minds. Travelers measured their approach by small signs, a smoke rising from a distant chimney, the sound of animals, or the faint outline of buildings beyond the trees. Each clue offered reassurance that the journey, long and slow as it had been, was leading somewhere. Yet the pace remained deliberate. Even hope did not quicken the rhythm, it only added a soft focus to each careful step. The mind lingered on what lay ahead. Thoughts of rest, warm meals, and a roof over the head mingled with quiet appreciation for the steady rhythm of walking. Travelers prepared themselves for the final stretch, not in urgency, but in gentle awareness, recognizing that medieval travel rarely rewarded haste. Animals, too, seemed to sense the end of the day or the nearness of shelter. Horses slowed slightly, sniffing the air, while carts creaked steadily forward. Travelers adjusted to these subtle changes, moving with calm attentiveness, mindful that even the last miles demanded patience. By evening, as the sun softened the landscape and shadows stretched across the road, the quiet hope of nearing the destination settled in. It was not triumph or excitement that accompanied travelers, it was a calm assurance, a gentle motivation to continue step by step, reminding everyone that after weeks of careful endurance, the journey's end was approaching, slowly and softly, just as the road had always dictated. Even as the destination drew near, the last stretch of road often felt surprisingly long. Every mile seemed heavier than the first, not because of distance alone, but because the body carried weeks of fatigue, sore feet, and the slow accumulation of effort. What should have felt like relief was tempered by the weight of endurance. Paths were uneven, stones jutted unexpectedly, and mud clung stubbornly to boots and cart wheels. The road had not changed, the traveler had. Every step required careful attention, yet the mind compared this final stretch to the memory of earlier miles, noticing how time seemed to stretch differently when nearing an end. Animals mirrored the traveler's fatigue. Horses moved steadily but with less enthusiasm, nudging slowly through familiar obstacles. Carts creaked in a deeper rhythm, each wheel rotation demanding gentle guidance. Travelers adjusted, walking alongside, balancing loads, and tending to companions who were just as tired as themselves. The landscape, familiar after weeks of travel, offered no distraction. Fields, forests, and small streams passed quietly, yet the final miles felt longer, measured more by effort than by sight. Each step carried the weight of anticipation, tempered by patience, as travelers realized that the journey's last moments were as slow and deliberate as the first. When the destination finally appeared, a town gate, a village edge, or a welcoming inn, it was met not with celebration, but with quiet relief. The road had been long, slow, and persistent, shaping every moment of the journey. And as travelers stepped inside, setting down packs and tending animals, they understood fully that medieval travel was never about speed, it was about endurance, patience, and the persistent rhythm of moving forward, step by slow step. After weeks on the road, travelers reached their destination, but arrival was rarely dramatic. There were no fanfares, no cheering crowds, only quiet streets, the muted sounds of daily life, and the slow rhythm of people continuing their own routines. The sense of achievement existed, but it was gentle, understated, and often accompanied by fatigue too deep for excitement. Travelers set down packs and unloaded carts with care, mindful of sore muscles and tired animals. Horses were watered and fed, carts inspected, and belongings arranged in whatever space was available. Every movement was deliberate, slow, and precise, reflecting the long hours of endurance that had led to this moment. Meals were simple and restorative. Bread, cheese, and watered ale offered comfort rather than indulgence. Travelers ate quietly, savoring sustenance more for its ability to ease weariness than for pleasure. Conversation was minimal, exchanged softly among those who had shared the journey, acknowledging the relief of arrival without words of celebration. Even sleep arrived without ceremony. Beds, straw, or simple floor coverings welcomed bodies that had carried fatigue across countless miles. Dreams were gentle, reflective, and slow, echoing the measured rhythm of the road itself. Arrival marked the end of the journey, yet it was not triumph that lingered, it was calm, quiet endurance. Travelers had moved through rivers, forests, mud, and miles, guided by patience, routine, and steady effort. The journey's lessons were subtle. Medieval travel was never swift, always deliberate, and defined by persistence rather than excitement. Even in reaching the destination, the rhythm of the road remained with the traveler, a slow, steady pulse beneath every movement and every quiet breath. After finally arriving, travelers rested in quiet reflection. The body sank into the long-awaited comfort of a bed, straw, or simple floor coverings. Muscles stiff from weeks of walking, shoulders sore from carrying packs, and feet tender from uneven roads now found temporary relief. Even animals settled beside them, calm and fed, their steady breathing mingling with the soft rhythm of human rest. The mind wandered over the journey itself. Rivers crossed, forests entered and exited, villages passed, and roads endured, all unfolded in slow, deliberate memory. Each mile remembered not as distance, but as a series of patient steps, careful observations, and measured efforts. Fatigue brought clarity. The journey had been long, repetitive, and unhurried, but it had been survived with persistence. Travelers considered the quiet lessons learned along the way. Patience in the face of delay, attention to small details, care for animals and equipment, and acceptance of the road's deliberate pace. Every obstacle, muddy paths, creaking carts, slow ferries, and the constant repetition of wake, walk, and wait, had shaped a rhythm that was as much internal as external. Even the simple comforts of arrival carried meaning. A warm meal, a clean bed, or a moment of stillness became precious rewards. Travelers understood that the end of the road did not erase the effort taken to reach it, rather, it highlighted the endurance, patience, and quiet determination that had made progress possible. As sleep finally deepened, the journey lingered in memory like a soft echo. It was not marked by excitement, haste, or celebration, but by the gentle, persistent rhythm of medieval travel, a slow, deliberate passage that shaped every mile, every pause, and every quiet breath along the road. The traveler rested, finally, with the understanding that the journey itself was the true measure of time.